Hello, everyone, and we are live. Super excited. I think we'll just hang on till a few people show up online. It takes a little bit of lag, I think. There is a bit
Okay.
of lag, yeah. No, but it's so nice to have you here on a Saturday morning. We're not quite into noon yet, yeah. How's your day going so far?
It's gorgeous and the weather is beautiful and it almost feels like spring has finally we're feeling the first bits of spring, so I'm excited about that.
Okay. So I think I'm seeing somebody hop on and we'll just get started. So, hello everyone. Welcome to another series of the Saturday Expert series with me, Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni. I'm an Ayurvedic doctor, registered holistic nutritionist. And every Saturday, I'll bring a guest who will teach us about something we can practically implement in our life to better our lives, right? We talk about health, we talk about mental health. Today, we're talking about relationships, which is something which has really, really been a challenge for many during the pandemic. So pandemic has taken, a big toll on our own physical health, mental health, but also relationships. It's not easy to meet the constant demands from um, your spouse or kids when being quarantined together, which is putting everybody on the edge, right? And who
Mhm.
could be better to bring on board to discuss all our problems than Ronnie?
Thank you.
So, Ronnie Parker, she's a social worker. She is also the founder and CEO of the Couples Clinic. And for the last 20 years, she's worked with over thousands of couples, teaching them healthy communication. And I think communication is the biggest problem.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
yeah, we see, in today's world that can create a lot of issues, and pandemic is, creating an even bigger challenge. So her life's goal and dream is to help 1 million marriages. And today we are going to talk about, finding love in pandemic and how to really nurture your relationships in this time. So, Ronnie, what is your take on the situation? Like, I know you have a lot to say about it, but um, when pandemic started and I was reaching out to my friends and family, and in India you could absolutely not get out of your apartment. Here you can at least go for a walk, and here you have more of a space to yourself, but there are also places where you are in like a smaller apartment with the kids, with your spouse. You have no idea how to deal with it. You can't go out, you can't voice things, then you are working from home, so there are work pressures. So it's like a pressure cooker, right? You're like
Absolutely.
facing stress from every side. So how can one like deal with that, or how did you help people deal with it?
I think initially it was trying to help normalize that it was trauma. I think because it was collective trauma, people initially didn't recognize it as such. They were scared. They knew they were scared. They had some kind of idea that they were constantly in fight or flight. They recognized that they were crying a lot, that they were super irritable and they couldn't sleep and they couldn't eat. So just kind of reaching out to people and explaining, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's going on with your body. You're safe. You're okay. I know we don't know what's going on yet, but we're doing the best that we can, and we're in we're in it together, right? Isn't that what they always say? But just really normalizing it for people to know that this is what happens when you're under accelerated stress.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And how have you seen relationships change at this time?
Well, it's funny. It's had two impacts. For some people, it's torn them apart. Um, Being stuck together alone, not being able to do things like go to the gym or see their friends, trying to mitigate working from home and homeschooling and never leaving your spouse or kids. Well, this is an experience. We've never had this before. Where's the playbook for that? So for most people that it was too much. Like for many people it was too much. I did see a lot of couples break up over this pandemic. It was heartbreaking, really, really heartbreaking. But then for some people, I see them pull together. It was the first time, maybe in a decade, that they've actually had time together because they've been screaming so long and running so fast with their own careers. They were actually supposed to, they spent time with their kids and they mellowed. So it just, literally, some people came together, some people came apart.
Yeah. And I know, like, personally for me, I think, this is the time where I had a lot of changes to like everybody else, and my husband was still working. I think that helped me keep my sanity. But I think somehow it just brought us together because we found things that were interesting that we could do together, watch certain movies together or make a routine where we're actually giving time to each other and not pushing after our own careers. So that's been a blessing in disguise.
For sure.
What about, with all the self doubt, I know there's always a struggle when it comes to self love, when, there's so much collective trauma going on. People don't always attribute pandemic as a trauma. So thank you for talking about it. Nobody talks about pandemic as an emotional trauma, which it has been for everyone.
Absolutely. And the thing about trauma is that it doesn't, whenever we're in trauma, I mean, the basics is we don't feel safe. That is what trauma is, right? If I get a gun to my head, trauma. If I get assaulted, it's a trauma. But even a 10-year-old pushes an 8-year-old down. Trauma, right? 8-year-old trauma doesn't feel safe. So, and because we don't like to say, I don't feel safe and I'm scared because that's a vulnerable feeling, a lot of us literally, not only were we physically alone, but we were emotionally alone during the beginning of this too. And if you remember at the beginning, I mean, literally we're watching people drop dead in the streets off of Wuhan. So we really didn't know what the heck we were walking into last March.
Mhm. And it's always scary being, scared for your families, like what's going
Mhm.
on, are they safe? Yeah. So there's a lot going on. So how can one take care of your own self, like when this is going on, when you're facing so much trauma, when it's affecting your own mental sanity? We are going to talk about relationships, today as well. But what about the relationship with yourself? How can, are there any steps one can take? And now, even though we think the immediate trauma has subsided, but there is this chronic phase where it just never seems to go away. We're seeing a lot of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, self care, loving yourself always starts with just recognizing something is going on.
Mhm.
Most of us don't like to recognize it because it means facing pain. We don't want to face pain. Pain isn't comfortable. So we do anything but face it. If we fight it, what does that look like? It means I'm angry all the time. I'm walking around. I'm in a bad mood. I'm snapping off at my partner. I'm snapping off at my kids, or I'm flighting from that pain. I'm isolating. I'm not talking to anybody. I push all my feelings down. I might be self-medicating, drinking, drugging, whatever, because I can't handle it. So before you can even start to self-care, you got to recognize, hey, I'm not doing so well here, right? And sometimes I'm not doing so well looks like racing thoughts, like I don't know what's going to happen, what's going to happen, how am I going to figure this out, and what's going to happen, I don't know what to do. Or it can be like self-blame. I'm just so awful. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. It's all my fault, right? So recognize if you're having racing thoughts. Recognize if your body is doing things, because our body tells us when we're not doing well. We just don't like to listen to it. And it kind of manifests in like grinding teeth, and we're having like acid reflux, we're having like bowel issues, even our pits stink. Like everything, your body is screaming at you when you're not doing well. So if this is you and I'm hitting any points from you, just stop and recognize it. And don't feel bad about it. And don't feel shame about it. Pain is not shameful. If there's anything I like to teach people is pain is not shameful. So we start by self-care, right? By start giving energy to ourselves. So at the couples clinic, that's I own the couples clinic, and we teach couples how to communicate and to attach every single day. And so one of the things I love to teach about is that love is energy, and it is energy that we give away. And you got to understand, most of us, Nidri, we don't like to give away energy. We don't,
Nobody
because
does.
we're tired. We're overwhelmed. We got too many things to do. We got kids and work and life and bills and dirty floors and casseroles to make. And so we don't got energy to give away. But love is energy we give away, whether it's words, I love you, or touch, give a hug, or a service, let me make you a meal, or a gift, let me buy you something. So when we give love to ourselves, it means that I'm starting to put me first. It means that I'm starting to lower the bar. It means that I'm taking on less. I'm saying no. I'm I'm giving myself time to do that yoga class or go for a walk or hang out with my buddies and go for golf or whatever self care looks like to you. I know my husband, his self care is hanging out in the garage. His element is metal, so he's a guy who likes to work with metal, and that's how he does self care. Everybody has a different way, but it starts by taking me time and giving energy to myself.
Mhm. And that's amazing, that even recognizing that something's off is a form of self care. Because when the pandemic hit, everybody talked about self care, and then you see pictures of women with mud masks and, hair packs and everything. And some women are so tired, they're like, I can't do that. Like, I don't even want to go there. And uh, denial was also the first thing that hit a lot of people. When we face this challenge, nobody wants to accept that. So acceptance is, a form of self-care. And another thing I absolutely loved is, there's no shame in pain,
No
right?
shame.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so that is really, an amazing aspect. If you are watching this live, please say a quick hi. If you are watching this as a replay, you can say, put a hashtag as a replay. If you have any questions for me or Ronnie, you can post your questions in the comments as well. And if you want to learn more about Ronnie, you'll also find her on her website at thecouplesclinic.ca. um, if you have any hard time reaching her, just reach out to me and I'll make sure you can reach her. So that's fantastic. So Rajan is saying that in his opinion, relaxation of mind and body is important post COVID. 100%. Yeah. A yoga meditation daily regimen will help a lot. Hey Trish, Trish is here. Susan is here. Mary Alice is here. Hey, hello everyone. Thank you
Hello.
for watching this live. So we've talked about, self care, and how do you understand what your needs are? For some people, when, like, they don't know what they need, right? Like, you're overwhelmed, there's so much going on, that you need to love yourself or take time out for yourself. But if you're having a lot of stress going on and you're not sure of what exactly you need, is there anything that you can do for such people to find breakthroughs?
Well, here, let's do a litmus test, okay? So I'll ask this to our audience now that's watching, okay? So stress is kind of defined when you have too many resources taken from you and not enough resources to meet the need. The moment that happens, we're in a state of stress and we're producing cortisol. Cortisol is the thing that puts us into fight or flight. And so as human beings, we only have 5 resources. That's it. So I'm going to go through these resources and I want you to ask yourself if I have enough. And they are time, money, energy, physical capacity, and emotional capacity. So time, do you have enough time to do what you need to do? Are you always fighting the clock? Are you always running behind?
Mhm.
Money. Are you stressed about money? Are you living paycheck to paycheck? Are you worried about how you're going to pay your next bills? Energy. Are you exhausted? Is it hard to find that extra energy to do anything, to go anywhere? Physical capacity. This one's really important, guys. Are you in any pain? Do you have a bad neck, a bad back, a bad knee, something that you just chronically like to forget about and ignore? But pain constantly is releasing cortisol in our body. And last one, emotional. Are you struggling with anxiety and depression? And it's shocking to me, Andrea, how often I ask this question. I'll go through it, and most people are literally have no resources.
Yeah.
And so even without issues being like I'm struggling with my partner, I don't like my idiot boss, or my kid has a drug problem, even without the issues, if you don't have these 5 things, if you've run out of these 5 things, then you are constantly going to be in a state of stress. So then how do we get out of this? Well, then I've got to start reprioritizing. And that's hard. I'm going to have to find more time, which might mean walking away from things. I've got to find more money, which means either I'm scaling down or I'm finding a side thing. I've got to find more energy, which means, oh, and this sucks. I get to drink the water. Got to eat the whole food, got to walk and move my body. Nobody wants to do this when they have energy because they got no energy. But that's how we create energy, guys. Physical capacity, I have to stop ignoring my pain. And that's for emotional well. I can't ignore my pain anymore. I'm going to have to deal with it. And we like to put our pain in a little box and put the box in the back corner. Don't look at the back corner. But the reality is eventually it busts open.
Hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. So I have a comment. This is Vaidya Patankar from Mumbai. Thank you for watching. He's an Ayurvedic doctor as well. That's pretty amazing. And he says, excellent, precise presentation by Ronnie about, yeah, the five finger points. Yeah. And this is something each one can assess now, because sometimes like people don't know what to assess, right? So let's, like we've talked about, taking time for self-care, finding self-love, or how to fuel your own, or yeah, fuel your own tank, fill your own tank first. What about partnerships, or like relationships with a loved one? It could be a spouse, significant other. And pandemic has created a lot of personal as well as relationship stress, and as you mentioned, like people either have gone like been more together, or they've fallen apart,
Yeah.
so how does one like make sure that they do what's right for them?
For the partner?
Yeah, for themselves whilst doing right for the partner, maybe. uh,
It's a tough balance because here's the thing. If you're not giving energy to yourself, okay? So actually, I got some cups. I love to use cups, okay? So let's pretend we're all a big cup, right? And we all want our cup to be full, right? But if we don't know how to fill our own cup, then we immediately look to our partner to do it. And most of the time, our partner does not have the same cup as we do, right? I know Ronnie Littlewood, she's a big cup, right? I want all the energy and all the love, right? Where my husband's probably a bit smaller, right? And so a lot of us don't know how to fill our cup, and we want our partner to fill our cup, but then that's unrealistic. The reality is my partner can only give me about half his cup at most, right? But the moment that this isn't happening, the moment that our expectation is that we want our partner to fill our cup with all the love energy, and they're not, or they're giving us only a realistic and reasonable amount, then we get resentful. Then we get sad and lonely and angry because you're not feeling my needs, and I don't feel loved enough, and I don't feel pretty enough, and I don't feel wanted enough. And you've got to do all of this work for my self-esteem because I don't know how to do it for myself. And I see that happen a lot. And then, of course, if I'm always on my partner about filling my cup, you got to love me more, you got to love me more, you got to love me more. Well, they're going to get sick really quick to give me energy, and they're going to stop, right?
Mhm.
Love begins with myself and with my partner when I know how to give energy away. In other words, when I know how to give my husband or my wife, depending on what kind of partnership you're in, give them words of affection and giving them the love that they want to receive. I'll give you an example. My husband is acts of service. He's always been acts of service. That's how he shows love. But I'm just a big words of affection girl. That's how I most feel loved, right? So although it would be so much easier for me to tell him how cute he is and how much I appreciate him and how I'm proud of him, I know it goes a lot further for him if I go and physically do something for him that he's going to appreciate more.
Mhm.
And it could be even a small thing. I'll give you an example. I remember one day he was having a bad day and we were running around, and I was like, he's a lover of Indian food, loves Indian food, but I was running late. It wasn't like I had time to go to a restaurant or anything. So I'm like embarrassed to say this, but I literally went to Shoppers, got the frozen one, and I got the Indian soup, and I went home, microwaved it up, took me 3.5 minutes. He came home, he was so happy, and he felt loved. Right? It took me, I didn't experience his love. It was just like running to Shoppers, whatever. But that's how he experienced it. And that is why it's important. So we have to learn how to give the love energy to our partners that they actually feel.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true, and yeah, I'm just looking at a comment. So, hi Rajesh. Ninad says, I think we should love our near and dear ones a lot unconditionally. The pandemic is a testing phase for all of us. We've seen all phases of lockdowns and unlocks. Fact is that love is protective, and fact is a strong invisible power behind all of us. Yeah, give love and love will find you 100%. But Ninad, the point is also that it's easier said than done, right? I think loving unconditionally is, like, I mean, it is celebrated 100%, but we also have to see that people are themselves struggling, and their struggles are genuine as well, during pandemic. to care for others. An example is, for a mom who is, I've had so many of my friends working from home. um, the kids are there, the spouses are there, they would cook in the morning, they would head out to their work, the kids would be at school. Now you're doing multiple jobs without having any time and space for their yourself, so 100% love should be unconditional, but at the time, I don't know how the mom is going to feel when she's totally, overwhelmed. Yeah, so 100% it should be that way, but um, it's also both ways is what. Yeah.
Well, I encourage unconditional love because we are capable of
Yeah.
it. But you're right. It's a very hard to practice. But yet we do it with our kids.
Yeah.
We do it with our kids all the time. My 10-year-old could like burn down the house,
Yeah.
kill the family dog. We're in a hotel. I'm on the phone with the insurance. I'm freaking out, and I still love my kid. And I'm so thankful that we all survived and everything was okay because I unconditionally love my kid. But when it comes to my partner, well, that's a whole other difference, right? Because we end up what I like to term the suffering Olympics. In other words, who's more hard done by? Who works
Yeah.
harder?
Yeah.
Who's more the victim in this relationship, right?
Wow. Can you tell us more about that suffering Olympics?
Well, it's kind of like I think it goes back to that energy. We're all very tired and we're all very exhausted, and we all have the roles and the responsibilities that we play in our relationship. And it's interesting, Andrea, because most of us think that we conflict over the issues, whether it's how much housework is divided, who's rearing the children, who's got the worst mother-in-law, sex or money, whatever. So we often think that it's the issues that is pulling the marriage apart, but it's not. It's never the issues. It's how we communicate about the issues. Mm-hmm. And so most of us get into fight or flight, and we don't listen to understand. We listen to respond and react and attack, right? And if we just slowed things down and really heard our person and heard what their vulnerability is, right? And had some empathy for why they're hurting, then we can love them and heal. But we don't. We get defensive. We get reactive. We feel we're so afraid of being blamed of everything. And God, we are so afraid of taking responsibility. And here's what I tell almost every couple who walks in here. You do not have to agree why your partner is angry or frustrated or upset with you. You don't have to agree. And in fact, I got to tell you, I'm almost 30 years married. I never agree. In my head, I'm like, nope, you're wrong. You're wrong. That's not true. But I got to acknowledge. If my partner is telling me this is causing me pain, this is frustrating me, this is upsetting me, even if I don't agree with it, I've got to acknowledge it. Why? Because I'm doing life with this person. And it's important to me that my person is happy. We have to be able to make complaints in marriage and receive them. And most people are terrified to hear complaints.
And then some people complain too much.
Say again?
Some people complain too much, as I'm saying. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Well, no, there are that too, right? They're over complainers too, or people who are nitpicky.
Yeah, no, but that's a really good point. Yeah.
Most of the time, it's not 50-50. I wish it was. It would be what a lovely world if all the problems we shared were 50-50, but it's more like 70-30. In other words, one person's usually carrying more and one person's down, and then we flip. And it's just not to be resentful, but to be loving towards our person when we need to pick them up and help them out, because at the end of the day, it's team us.
Yeah. And, this makes me look at my own life, when we're discussing, I came from India to, live in Canada. I was with my husband who was working nights at the time. And I was completely detached from my friends' family. And, it's very different, and difficult. But the one advice that I got from a random woman who visited, my university, and she knew I was coming to Canada. She was in the US. She gave me the best advice she could ever give. And I didn't even know her for more than a few hours. We were at an event together. And she said that you have to be emotionally independent as well. You have to be, as independent as possible. So you're not going to pressurize your relationship too much, right? You're not going to look at him constantly to fill your own glass. That's exactly how she described it, that somehow, it will be different. You have chosen this is, your calling. So you have to go and find a means to fill your own cup, see what you require, how to deal with it, rather than constantly, pushing your husband to give you the security that you don't feel anymore. Or so that was like a really amazing advice that, she gave me, and I really tried to listen to it as much as I could. I can't say 100%, but it did really help me.
Oh, wonderful. I often tell couples at the couples clinic, right, that the perfect marriage, honestly, is a perfect opposite. It's kind of like that yin and yang symbol that we see in Chinese culture. And the reason is believe it or not, this is the very thing that attracts you to your person, right? If
Mhm.
you're a quiet person, you don't talk a lot, then guess what? You're going to be attracted to somebody who talks
Yeah.
because they bring it out of you, because they're courageous, because they say things that they think that attracts you to them, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're probably always going to be not a bit of a talker. And so maybe let's take this couple, project them 10 years in the future. And the talker of the couple is like, well, he never talks. He won't ever talk, right? Meanwhile, the reason that you were attracted to him in the first place was because he listened well. That's what he's always done, is be a good listener. And you've always been a good talker. That's never going to change. And so the very thing that attracts us in the beginning, almost always around the 10-year mark, is the very thing that starts to pull us apart. And if we can just recognize that, my partner completes that circle, they're going to see things and hear things that maybe I won't catch because they're a verbal processor or because I'm a cognitive processor. And I
Mhm.
think and I love that when I'm working with couples who've been together like 15, 20 years, and they're like, and I'm just teaching this to them for the first time, and they're like getting it, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess she is good at that, yeah, I guess he is good at that. And instead of resenting it, now I'm going to hold it out. Now I'm going to realize, actually, that's a tool in my pocket that I've been dismissing for a very long time.
Mhm. No, that is amazing. And you also mentioned that, we have to learn to respond, not just to react, or not just to be angry. Or so how does one do that? How do you develop that patience, and is there an art to it, or how would you guide somebody?
Well, there's a couple of things, right? I like to give people permission, including my partner, my clients, and my kids. It's just like a secret little therapy trick I use. I give permission. First of all, I ask permission if I'm going to make a complaint, and I give permission for you to disagree with me. So it looks a little bit like this. Like I'd be like, honey, I get something you might not agree with it. Is it okay if I bring it forward? And you don't have to agree with me on it. I just need you to kind of hear me out. And it's funny when you do that little thing, it disarms people. First of all, they have a willingness to be challenged. And second of all, they feel in control because now you've given them permission to disagree with you. That's how we start to actually just build in the beginnings of communicating, because now we are on equal ground and we both have each other willing to listen and hear the information, even if you disagree with it.
Mhm. And what about this gives rise to any kind of conflict?
Say again?
What if it gives rise to any kind of conflict, like when we talk about, oh, I'm going to say this, you might not like it. And because in marriages, like that's one thing, the conflict resolution plays a
I
major.
know. I know. And it's because most of us get defensive. right? And when we get defensive, it's always the same. I'm right and I'm not listening. That's what defensiveness is always saying. And it's really easy to get defensiveness because I don't want to take responsibility for your pain. I don't want to own that. I disagree with that. You're being mean. But the reality is I have to listen to you. So I teach people some deep breathing exercises just to help them recognize when they're in fight or flight. And I think it's really important to strategically use some form of pause button, some form of time out, so that when we recognize that, oh, it's getting big, we're escalating, my heart is pounding, my head is racing, I disagree with you, I'm starting to elevate, my tone is getting louder, that one of us has enough sense to hit the pause button so we can go calm down. Because actually, that's how the masters of marriage do it. The problem is that we don't hit the pause button. We keep going,
Mhm.
um, and then it turns into dirty fighting.
Mhm.
And that's when we say, you know, crappy things to each other. We swear, we name call, we hurt each other, and then it's really, really hard to come back from that, especially if we don't know how to forgive.
Mhm. Okay, I'm just gonna look at a quick message. So yeah, so Dr. Rajan is saying that assessing the strong and weak points before talking to loved ones. Yeah, that's also really really important. So as we have also talked about people going through really difficult decision making, right? Like COVID has either made relationships stronger or broken a few relationships, and there are times when it's a very difficult decision for yourself to get out of a relationship, right? And sometimes there are certain red flags that we see that we tend to ignore. um, how does one recognize, like, is there a way for a person to understand whether they should stay in, or what are some red flags that okay, you have to be out of it?
Well, before I even get there, let's just look at attachment, okay? Because it's hard to know if there's attachment still there or if attachment is breaking. And if attachment is breaking, there's lots of red flags, and I'll go to that in a minute. But at the end of the day, attachment is only made and only made by a person sick, scared, or hurt. So I'm going to give you an example. I want you to think about this for a second, okay? I want you to think about the people who've been there for you in your life, the people who've had your back, the
Mhm.
people that you would turn to, say, if your house burnt down, right?
Mhm.
Chances are the people that you are thinking of were there for you when you were sick, scared, or hurt. And you
Yeah.
see, when a person attends to us when we're sick, scared, or hurt with love, empathy, oh, hon, that's really hard, and support, is there anything you need? That's always going to make a nice, strong attachment,
Mhm.
right? I want you to think for a second about the people you can't stand, the people you can't even sit on the couch with this person. That's how much you dislike them. Okay. Chances are the person that you're thinking of created feelings in you of either sick, scared, or hurt. And when we are sick, scared, or hurt, and a person reacts to us with either anger, annoyance, what do you know, or withdrawal, I don't know what to do, that's what always breaks attachment every
Mhm.
single time, right? So when people are in relationships where they don't feel their cup is being filled and they feel sad and lonely, right? And they're starting to wonder, is this a relationship should I be in? Should I be leaving them? What should I do? I always want to take stock. First of all, fair question. Well, how does your partner treat you when you're sick? Are they loving? Do they give you some chicken noodle soup? Are they kind to you? Do they do a little bit extra? What about when you're scared, when you have anxiety, when your head is racing, your heart is pounding? Maybe you got a bad boss. Maybe you're upset about, I don't know, the state of the world right now. Whatever that anxiety is your partner going, oh, honey, it's going to be okay. And here, talk it out. And I love you and I got you. And we're in this together. Or are they like, it's all in your head and we just like do something and, you're like space cadet, or if they're being mean to you, then that's an issue. And if you're hurting, if you're crying, right, like you're so sad, are they coming in and comforting you and loving you? Or are they being disrespectful to you? Because here's the thing, guys, love and disrespect cannot coincide at the same time. at all. And try, right? And sometimes we use disrespect as a form of anger to get control in the relationship, but it's always what destroys the relationship. So if your person is attending to you when you are sick, when you are scared, and you are hurt with love, empathy, and support, my guess is then you probably got a pretty great relationship. But if your partner is attending with anger, annoyance, or they just don't care, they're not even asking anymore, then my guess is right now you're feeling pretty alone and lonely. Now, it's not to say that we can't make it better. We can't make relationships stronger. We do it every single day at the couples clinic, so I fully believe it. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of a twist, a little bit of a tweak, getting people on board, having them both understand what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right, so that they can do better at that. But if you're chronically having thoughts like, I wonder where I should live. I wonder financially how this is going to work out when we split bank accounts. I wonder what Christmas is going to be like with my partner not there. I wonder how we're going to be splitting up the kids. If you're there, that is end stage. That is you just about to pull the ticket and leave. Because as I said, love is energy. Love is energy that we give away. And when we have broken attachment, I'm not crying, not anymore. I'm not angry, not anymore. It's an emptiness because the energy isn't there. It's a hollow, it's a go. Have a good life. I just don't want to be with you anymore.
Mhm. So then, how do you know that it's worth saving?
Well, I would think that if your partner's at least attending to some of those things, that's
Okay.
a good sign, right? I like to look at the issues. So I'm going to throw out some issues here again. So I want you to think in your head, check the boxes, right? I
Mhm.
often do this little exercise in the very first session with my couples. It's called together or apart. So we'll do this together, okay? And all I want you to do in your head is, are we together on these issues? Or are we apart? So I say sex, together or apart. And that just means if there's conflict, you're apart. If there's no conflict, you're together. Even if you only had sex like once a month, if you're both okay with that, then there's no
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah.
Money, together or apart. Are you
Yeah.
aligned with money? Parenting, together, apart. Do you have each other's back? Are you dressing each other down in front of the kids? Roles and responsibilities, together and apart. In other words, who's doing what gets done? Ask about control and power, how we make those big decisions or the little decisions. Are we together or apart? And so just kind of fun. Oh, do we have enough fun together? Because I got to tell you, most couples these days, there aren't no fun, especially with COVID. COVID kind of canceled fun for a while. So it's trying to find fun, right? Find the energy again with each other, even in spite of everything that's going on. So if you're having a lot of those issues are apart, and you don't feel like they're attending to your sick, scared, hurt, then it's getting close to done. And
Mhm.
the reality is, it only takes one person to break up a relationship. It doesn't take two. That means one person will lead the divorce,
Mhm.
always.
So there are a lot of people saying thank you for this. I can't see the names because you're in the Facebook group. Sorry, ladies, I can't see your names. And one of the Facebook users is saying mixed messages and resentment are what I feel for my daughter's father.
Yeah, resentment is hard. So let me talk about that for a second, okay? That's a tough one. So, and I'm going to push back. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I hope you give me permission to challenge you, whoever you are out there. So let's again go back to energy because I'm a big energy girl. So resentment is an energy that I hold. Nobody else gets to hold it for me. It is mine.
Mhm.
I hold my resentment. How do I do that? It feels like a feeling, but truly, it's a thought. And the thought might be something along the lines of, he doesn't do anything for me. He doesn't even care. He doesn't even try as hard. I'm doing everything by myself. And remember that time he did that terrible thing to me. So it requires, every time I'm triggered, I think about every single terrible, awful, no good terrible thing that you've done to me, which will create the feeling. The feeling does not manifest on its own. It requires a thought, bloop, bloop, cortisol to create the feeling, right?
Mhm.
So how do I release this? How do I let this go, this terrible feeling, when I don't know what to do with it? That
Mhm.
goes back to unconditional love. Okay. So I'm going to put you back to your kid. Okay. So let's say our 3-year-old, I remember my 3-year-old had quite a child, and he once took, I had this beautiful yellow sofa. It's gorgeous. I loved it. I went on an auction, and he got some red nail polish, and he poured it all over the yellow fabric couch. And then, because he's a smart boy, he strategically put all the cushions over the red nail polish so it all dried together. Yes. So that was really easy to be resentful about that. But I loved my kid, right? And my kid could burn down the house and kill the family dog, and I would still love my kid because I love my kid without conditions. That means I forgive him.
Yeah.
And forgiveness is a decision.
Mhm.
Always. It's a decision. And the decision is that I'm going to love you and not punish you in spite of the fact that you hurt me. Well,
Mhm.
then resentment is a decision that I'm going to punish you and not love you in spite of the fact that you hurt me. And you
Mhm.
can stay in that state forever. You really could. And you can build on resentments because there's so many that we can stack up. That comes back to that suffering Olympics. Or I can learn to release them through the act of forgiveness, which again, we do with our kids all the time. We just have a really hard time doing it to our spouse. Now, that doesn't mean, whoever you are out there in internet world, that does not mean that you set yourself up to be a victim of abuse. I'm not going to let somebody um, call me a B word over and over again and and swear at me and treat me abusively, and I'm
Mhm.
going to give them unconditional forgiveness. My kid, yes, because it's my kid and they're little, but my partner, no. So there are limits to forgiveness as well.
Mhm. No, thank you for pointing that out, and that's a really great insight of how we respond differently. Yeah, so thank you so much. And this is this is all the time we have today. Thank you everyone for your messages. And I know your goal is to save 1 million marriages, which is really interesting. I know you shared your story with me before we got started on this talk, but I would love for you to, share a little bit about your journey and how you created the couples clinic, because it's a very specific niche, right? Which is not seen anywhere else. So I would love for you to share with our listeners, how you started the couples clinic.
Well, it's kind of a 2-point story, okay? And I've actually never done this live before, but I'm going to go with it, right? Because we have good energy. So let's do this. So I was just like, I'm a registered social worker, a master's degree in social work. But I had like a non-typical childhood. So by the time I was 18, I had moved 28 times. I'd lived all over across Canada, and I watched love being made and broken over and over again because I had a myriad of different stepfathers. And because from a very young age, I was very fascinated by love because it would create and destroy over and over again. I wanted to understand it. So I was always kind of in love with love. I was always a bit of a romantic. And I was fortunate because I met my husband when I was 18. And we've been together forever. And I've been very blessed in my own relationship. We've had 4 kids together. But it was probably in the early 2000s. I think we kind of hit a road bump, like most people. In fact, it's usually that 5 to 7 year mark that most people hit the road bump. Why? Because they're littered with children and they're all of a sudden adult and they got all these adult responsibility and mortgage and bills, and you kind of have this like crisis moment of, how do I do this? I don't even know. I've never worked so much in my entire life. The only time I get to not feel exhausted is the very 5 minutes before I fall asleep at bed, right? So like most couples, I wasn't giving the energy to him. He wasn't giving the energy to me, right? And we were kind of silos in this, trying to raise all these children and figure our way out. So I grabbed a phone book. which I'm kind of dating myself. And I'm like looking up couples counseling. And every time I come up to it, it would just like, it would show these therapies. It's like, I deal with bipolar and schizophrenia and children and couples and groups and I'm like, no, no, no. I want to go to somebody who really knows what they're doing. I want to go to an expert. And so I kind of kept looking for that and couldn't see it anywhere. And yet I would be like, but there's McDonald's. If I want a burger, I just go to McDonald's, and there's Canadian Tire. But what tire is a good Canadian Tire? But if I'm a couples therapy, where do I go? And so in my head, in that moment, the couples clinic was built, and I kind of had this pull from the universe, lots and lots of pulls from the universe to go and do this. But I was scared. Fear holds us back a lot. Fear holds us back in our life, in our marriage, and everything. And really all we need to do with fear is step into courage. Fear, often when we hide from fear, we feel safer and stronger. But when we step into courage, we feel stupid, weak, pathetic, and a loser every time. You cannot do courage without feeling stupid, weak, and pathetic, and a loser every single time. So I stepped into courage. I opened the couples clinic here in Sarnia with 73,000 people. But my goal has been from the beginning, I want to teach people how to attach. I want people to know what makes it and what breaks it. I want people to know how to fight fair, fight so that your person can hear the complaint, but you got to be willing to hear the complaint yourself. I want people to learn how not to engage in like toxic, negative behavior like contempt. I'll give you an example. Did you know the number one thing that is the most disrespectful that you can do to your partner in an argument is roll your eyes or do this? What do you know? That is like the number one. If you follow John Gottman, Gottman is like the father of couples therapy. And so I started learning everything I could about love from a philosophical, whether it was from religions, whether it was from a social work model, and then kind of created my own communication program so that I could bring it to the masses. Now, we've always done it kind of on a small scale here in Sarnia, just people coming into my office. But then I always had this plan that no, I wanted to be this needs to be for Ontario. I wanted to be Ontario's online couples counseling agency. And so one of the blessings in my life from COVID, because I try really hard to have gratitude and I try really hard to find blessings even in this dark time, was that it forced me to get online. And it forced me to start teaching and talking to people all across this province and teaching them how to do it, whether they're just sitting on their couch with their cup of coffee and we're talking and I'm showing them the videos and we're doing the exercises and people are learning, or I didn't have couples in bed. I do. I'm in Ronnie Littlewood is in many, many bedrooms, but it's fun and we have fun and we laugh together and people learn. And most of my couples often treat it like a date night. They really do. They have fun and we laugh and we grow and we learn. And that's the most important thing. So we teach one-on-one. We do lots of individual too for people who are like, oh, do I stay? Do I go? I don't know. Sometimes we do one-offs with people just because they need to be heard, whether they're same sex, whether they're blended families, because that one's really hard. And I got to tell you, Andrea, how many times I've heard if I had just worked as hard in my first marriage as my second marriage, I'd still be married to the first one, right? So we want to instill hope in people, but most importantly, we want to give people the tools and the skills to do it together. I mean, it's one thing if the wife is, running off and she's reading books, right? But really, we need both to be engaged to have the most success. And believe it or not, it is not just the wives. I got to tell you, at least half the people who contact us are men. And sometimes it's men who don't want to stay in their relationships as well. We deal with infidelity, right? When somebody's crossed the line, maybe they, especially being locked in so much, maybe they had a text affair, right? Maybe they blurred the emotional boundaries with somebody. How do you come back from that? You do. I tell people all the time, sometimes infidelity is the best thing. Worse because nothing hurts so much, nothing than when you're betrayed by your partner, but the best, because when you finally get to the foundation, when you get to rock bottom of what you need and what is real and why we're together and what's at stake, then you get really real about actually saving it. So that's what we do here every single day.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. That's amazing. So for everyone that's listening, um, you can reach out to Ronnie at thecouplesclinic.ca, and she does work virtually. Now she's virtual all over Ontario, and I'm pretty sure all over the world once you're virtual, right? So if you are struggling with your relationship, like it's definitely the time to reach out. And see, the one thing is, for as a person, everything that you want to do, like if your relationships are stable, you're going to have a lot more energy, a lot more love for yourself. Like it's a two-way thing is what I always feel, like when you're not feeling well, it's going to take a toll on your relationships. But at the same time, if you have relationships where you're dragging, which are dragging your life, you're not going to feel very good either. So if you are struggling, please reach out, and I'm sure she'll be able to help you. So thank you so much, Ronnie. This was really, really wonderful. I learned a lot today myself. So this was really fantastic. Thank you so much. And looking forward to having you back on the expert series
Thank you.
once
Thank
again.
you
Thank
so
you so
much as well. And if I could just say one more thing before I go.
much. Mhm.
If you out there, whoever you are thinking about leaving, all right, I only ask one small thing.
Mhm.
Tell them. Tell them that you're thinking of leaving. Tell them why you're thinking of leaving. Don't make it an attack. Be vulnerable. Be open. Be courageous. Because it is in that minute that everything can change. And I've seen it a million times. Give your partner the benefit of the doubt to believe you enough to have the willingness and the courage to change.
Mhm.
And that's it.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.